2025 Dodge Charger EV. Let's take a look. So here I'm just looking at Dodge's website. The world's only electric muscle car. Excuse me. Well, you could argue there's a number of muscle car EVs out there. The obvious one that comes to my mind would be the Tesla Plaid. It's like 1,000 horsepower, although these Dodges, depending on how you equip it, run $50,000 to $80,000, and that Tesla Plaid is over 100,000 last time I looked. So, any rate, so there's that. So here we've got one in this blue color, and then you've got the orange, which I mean, I could probably kind of like that blue. I don't mind the orange either. It's just I don't know if I'd want to live with it for the next decade. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. Been outside working and with the pollen and all that, kind of getting to me. But any rate, so 670 horsepower all-wheel drive. That's assuming you get the Scat Pack, the Daytona Scat Pack, which when we get into this video here in a minute, you'll see on the side of the car it shows it's got the Scat Pack logo, and then below that it says Stage 2. So that would be the 670 horsepower, 627 foot-pounds of torque, instant torque. And then here they're showing, kind of a see-through or a cutout, if you want to call it that, with the battery packs and all that. And you'll notice by the front wheel, there's two drive motors. There's a front and a rear, so it's an all-wheel drive, which I personally like. The rear motor has a mechanical limited slip differential to minimize wheel slip during high-powered all-wheel drive launch moments. Okay, I think that's pretty cool. So here's the part that scares me. These electric motors, all these battery packs. I mean, most of us can, or a lot of people, especially if you're kind of a hot rod guy or girl, excuse me, you can change your oil and your brake fluid and, replace a power steering belt or whatever. But on this stuff, like unless you're an IT guy, you're not, and you have the specialized tools and specialized hardware and software, you ain't doing nothing with that. And that's what scares me about these EVs, which is why I don't own one. But that's another story. Here's another cutout. So 400 volt propulsion system, and I don't know if 400 volts is good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not really good with electronics, just not my thing. But at any rate, so if we go back up here, so the Daytona, what they're going to call the RT, is a 400 horsepower is about what they rate it at, and then if you upgrade to this Scat Pack / Stage 2, you get 670 horsepower, but you're also going from 50,000, up to 70-ish thousand, and then there's other add-ons you can add and spend even more, if your heart desires. So it's got a multi-link front suspension, so that's pretty cool. Negative camber, induction and forged aluminum links to amplify traction and strength. So that's pretty cool. And apparently they made the chassis more rigid than 50. Actually, they're claiming 50% stiffer than the previous Charger. And I guess that's maybe to do with the all-wheel drive function. That's what I'm guessing. And then when you look at the interior, I first thought this what looks like a paddle shifter here is just that, a paddle shifter. It's what it looked like. And I want to say there's one on the left side as well. But what it looks like, the paddle shifter is actually regenerative braking, and you can change how much regenerative, how strong you want the brakes to be, and how much regenerative braking the car gets. Here's a side view of the, I guess that's the Scat Pack logo, or is no, well, I don't know if that's Scat Pack or not. It's the Bumblebee thing. Like, you don't see those on like the base model, like the GT Chargers, the gas powered ones. They don't have that stuff. So I'm not sure, but so available doesn't come standard apparently. Available on the Scat Pack with the track package, you get the high performance brakes with 6 piston front and 4 piston rear calipers. So big brake system, assuming you want to upgrade and pay the difference. There's a side view. And then we'll take a closer look at this in a minute, but you'll notice the front of the car here, it's open in the front there to let air come up through the front, up over the hood and the windshield, down to the rear. And you'll also see that if you look at that back window closely, there's not a regular trunk. It's a hatchback style. And then it also, they're talking about this fratzonic chambered exhaust, which we'll get into that in a minute. Basically, it's just it's a couple speakers in the back of the car to make it sound like it's a big block V8, which, yeah, I don't know about all that. So there's a shot of the interior. There's a better shot of the interior. It's got the big widescreen display. I think it's like 13 inches. It's got the flat top steering wheel front and rear, so that's pretty cool. There's another look of it. Oh, so here's another add-on. You have this variable lighting, this attitude adjustment lighting. Goes 270 degrees around the cabin. It illuminates the doors and interior, and you can choose from 64 different colors. Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay, so that's a lot, but we'll see. So here you see the seats fold down, and it's talking about the hidden hatch trunk design of the Charger Daytona lifts all the way up. So it's a hatchback. I saw a picture of with the hatch open. I can't find it again. And so it's on this site somewhere, but they did a really good job at burying it, because that's not apparently something they really want to advertise. 'Cause when you see the car with the rear hatch open, it's like this huge hatchback looking thing. It's not the best look. Certainly doesn't go, at least in my mind, certainly doesn't go with the whole muscle car motif, at least in a Charger. But whatever, that's what it is. But it's just interesting that they don't put the picture up there where it's easily found. It's like you can find it, but you got to dig around. And I had it, I didn't save it, I can't find it again. It's like they don't. Yeah, they put it on their website, but they sure don't want you looking at it, so they don't make it easy to find. So there's that. Here's what they call the Mission Control Center. You can see the lighting in the door panels over here off to the left and around the dash. I mean, that's cool and all, but one of my cars has something similar to that, but it does not have 64 different, colors to choose from. So yeah, whatever. And then you got some drive modes, which is cool. Drag, track, sport, auto, wet, snow, custom. So that's pretty cool. One of my cars has that as well. And to me, there's only one mode, which for me is N mode, which is Nuremberg. I'm referring to a 2025 Hyundai Elantra N, which is a sedan, 300 horsepower, 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo sedan. Fun little car, and I'll get into why I bought that particular car in a minute. I didn't want a Charger or a Challenger for reasons that I really won't get into, but I'll just say that there's a certain genre of people that like to drive those cars, and I just didn't even want to be in that club. So, but for me, I was looking at, I wanted the best value of something that was fun to drive and quick. It doesn't have to be super fast, but I wanted something quick and sporty, but I also wanted decent fuel economy. I did not want an EV. And so pound for pound, dollar for dollar, I picked the Elantra N, which was $40,300 out the door with a 10-year powertrain warranty, 550 bumper to bumper, and 3 years of oil changes and tire rotation. So to me, that was pretty easy decision. So here's a driver experience recorder, which is kind of cool. So I guess if you're going doing a track day, maybe I guess it's got a front facing camera, or maybe that's a rear facing. I'm not really sure. Got a little heads up display up here, which is pretty cool. And that's also, it's not standard. That's an add-on. The available head-up display gives you primary driving information like speed limit. And then over on the right here is talking about the touch screen. So here we have two versions: the Daytona, which they refer to later as the RT. That's the 400 horsepower version. I'm sorry, 496. My bad. Excuse me. And then this what they're calling the 6-pack, which you'll see in a minute when we play this video. It actually down here on this front quarter panel below the little bumblebee thing, it doesn't say 6-pack. It says stage 2. So it's a little bit confusing, but that 6-pack or stage 2, whatever you want to call it, is the 670 horsepower version, which is, I'm sure that thing's a blast to drive. And then here's just some more kind of random photos. I like that red interior. I think that's pretty slick. Don't know if I'd want to look at it for 10 years, but you know, I keep my cars for 10 years. But so here, oh, well, there we go. There's the picture. So this one does say RT, but this is the only picture I've seen anywhere that says RT on it. Okay, so there's some of that. And then this is from Motor Trend. We're just going to quickly run through some of these random photos here. So you'll notice on this one, up underneath the bumblebee here, it doesn't say RT, and nor does it say 6-pack, nor does it say stage 2. But I'm assuming this is the 500 horsepower version, unless there's another version that they're not really talking about that's something less than the 500 horsepower. Like maybe this is going to be a base model or something. It's not real clear. It's a little bit confusing the way they're listing it. Nonetheless, for right here, right now, I'm assuming that's the RT, the 500 horsepower version, because when you look at their website, they're showing two versions, the RT and the 6-pack. So I'm going to assume this is the RT. There's a front view, and I think that's a good looking car. It's got the light bar running down the front. It's got this, whatever this little 3-prong logo thingy is here, which is pretty cool. And then I guess you got your parking sensors and what have you. But I mean, that's pretty slick looking to me. And then here's just a different view of it. But let's look at, these wheels are really cool, but they look like a real pain in the butt to clean. You'll see how it has all these, I mean, look, if you look closely, it's like you got to wash the outside and you got to wash the inside. It's got all these little weird lips, and that just looks like that'd be a real pain in the butt, which is a problem for me because you can have the car clean and dirty wheels and the car still looks like crap. Or you can have a car that doesn't look all that good, but the wheels are really clean and it just makes the whole car look better. So the point is, I'm a huge fan of having my wheels nice and clean. So, I mean, that's not a deal breaker by any means because it's a really good looking wheel, but I'm just saying looks like a real bitch to clean. And then here's the side view. And again, you'll look here at the quarter panel. You got this big logo on the side here, but nothing that says RT, nothing that says 6-pack. So I don't know. You guys tell me, is that a base model or is that the RT? I'm saying that's the RT. Here's from the driver's back quarter. Again, that's a good looking car. I really like this rear design here. I just think it's really, really clean and slick looking. Spoiler's kind of small, and you know, it's not like super big and gaudy like a whale tail or something, which, you know, is kind of cool, at least to me. Here's the front view. Again, good looking car, clean lines. Now here's an interesting one. Look at the this is what they call the R wing, which, you know, I don't know why they call it an R wing. That R would be, and to me at least, I would think rear wing, like it'd be on the back of the car, but it's not. It's on the front of the car, so I don't know why they didn't call it an F wing, F as in front, but nonetheless, so air flows up through there, up over the hood, and I mean, it's different. It's kind of cool looking, but it's also kind of funky looking. to me. But anyway, it has it. And then this is kind of funny. You'll notice down here. So this is I think it's called the phasionic exhaust, and basically it's speakers that makes noise and makes it sound like it's a V8, which, wow, yeah, okay. I'm not sure I get that, and honestly I think that's just kind of stupid. But I mean, if it's an EV, it's an EV. They're not, why are you going to buy an EV, which are typically quiet? All you hear is just like some whine from the electric motors or something like that. But you're going to make an EV, and then you're going to give it this fake V8 sound through some speakers underneath this rear part of this bumper. I mean, that's just, I don't know. What do you guys think? Anybody think that's cool, or y'all agree with me? That's just kind of dumb. I think it's kind of dumb. Anyway, let's take a quick look at this video. This guy does a pretty good job, and you'll see what I mean. He's going to be driving the 670 horsepower version of this car.
Have you ever seen an EV do this? Have you ever smelled an EV do this? What the hell? It won't do a burnout?
That's right, the 2024 Dodge Charger Daytona, the electric successor to the gas-chugging, tire-eviscerating Challenger, can't do a burnout. Wait. Before you throw your phone into a pond, just stick with me to the end. Despite the fact the Daytona can't smoke its rear meats, Dodge wants you to think of this car as a muscle car first, and an EV, well, somewhere after. It's got a hulking presence, it's obnoxiously loud.
Okay, so there you go. That's what I was talking about. There's the Stage 2 logo underneath the Bumblebee. So that's the, but they don't call it a Stage 2 at Dodge's website. They call it the 6-pack. So that's what I meant when I was saying it's a little confusing. And then the other version, which I'm assuming is the RT, has the Bumblebee up here, but it doesn't say anything. It doesn't have a Stage 2. It doesn't say RT. It doesn't say anything. So that's what I was getting at.
Outrageously powerful, and absurdly quick.
Of course, the reason this car can't do a burnout isn't for a lack of power or torque. It makes 670 horsepower and 628 pound-feet of torque. But all that output is split equally front and rear. And, of course, this is a single-speed EV, which means that one gear ratio has to take you all the way from idle, or 1 mile per hour, up to top speed. And so that single gear ratio is much taller than first gear in a gas vehicle. Add that up with some pretty grippy tires, you just can't break the tires free. It's a bummer that Dodge didn't think to put in some kind of software algorithm to help you break it free. But instead they've done the opposite. This vehicle does not like pedal overlap where you're applying both the brake and the accelerator. To me, it's the biggest miss with this car. You're telling me to think of it as a muscle car, and it can't do burnouts. That said, if you're not trying to smoke the tires and you just care about going fast, this thing's got the juice. I've got the powertrain in the most relaxed street mode, but if I hit power shot and flatten the accelerator, holy hell, this thing goes.
I bet that thing is quick, and I bet that's a lot of fun. And if you'll notice, when we restart the video, you can hear some of that audio we were talking about.
Dodge claims a quarter-mile time of 11.5 seconds for the $75,185 Scat Pack, and I actually ran in 11.47 seconds at 119.5 miles per hour on a drag strip. If it can reproduce those times in our testing on a street surface, the Daytona will easily walk every Hellcat Motor Trend has ever tested. The $61,590 RT model uses the exact same motors, but it's software limited to.
So there we just saw one that said RT Stage 1. That's the first time I noticed that. And then he just referred to the Stage 2 he's driving as the Scat Pack, but Dodge on its website calls it the 6-pack. So I don't know, man. You guys tell me. So apparently the RT Stage 1, the Scat Pack / 6-pack is the Stage 2. So Stage 1, 500 horsepower, Stage 2, 670. So maybe, hopefully that clears it up.
496 horsepower and 404 pound-feet of torque, which takes a big bite out of the 0 to 60 time at a claimed 4.7 seconds. There will, of course, eventually be an SRT model that will almost certainly launch to 60 in less than 3 seconds. Of course, everybody can and does make EVs that are blindingly quick in a straight line. What really caught me by surprise is how good the Daytona's chassis is.
This Charger Daytona feels much more composed, like a much better handling vehicle than the Challenger it replaces. And that's for two main reasons. The first is that this vehicle was designed from the outset, the body structure, the chassis, for the most powerful versions that Dodge will make. And that's not true. If you look at the bones of that old Challenger platform, they set out and they only worked on those mainstream versions initially. And when it came time to make the SRT versions, they sat down and said, oh man, how are we going to do this? How are we going to strengthen it, stiffen it to handle this extra power and torque? They did that from the beginning. And with the battery installed, this vehicle is 50% stiffer than the Challenger it replaces. The second factor is the fact that the weight distribution and torque distribution is split evenly. Whereas the old Challenger, you had all this weight up front, sending all the torque to the rear. And so it understeered, under braking when you're trying to trail brake it into corners. And it
Just reminded me of something. A number of months back, I saw a gas powered. I don't remember if it was a Hellcat or not. I think it was, and it was I think the only time I've seen one that was an all-wheel drive. And I'm gonna tell you, that guy was getting it. And then beyond that, there's all these videos all over the internet of people just doing burnouts and, doing these intersection takeovers and just roasting tires, to the point that they're literally blowing the tires off the wheels. And you can't do that in the all-wheel drive. On the other hand, you see there's a ton of videos out there where these guys in these rear-wheel drive, Hellcats and Camaros and Corvettes and whatever, all these, high-powered rear-wheel drive cars, and they're pulling out of, say a car meet, and they get on it, and they end up, in a tree or in the ditch because they get sideways and they don't counter steer, or they let off the gas at the wrong time, or whatever the deal is. And of course, with the all-wheel drive, you're not going to have any of that. You just, you line it up, you punch it, and it's just going to go where you point it, which I personally think is a pretty good deal.
like to oversteer when you're applying power, exiting those corners. That can be fun. That can be a ton of fun. But this vehicle feels far more ruthless and effective in cornering. I don't know if all of that's going to hold up on the track, but we're going to find out.
Putting the old Challenger on a track was always a recipe for disappointment. Too heavy, too soft, too uncoordinated. And this electric Charger Daytona is, predictably, even more massive than the car it replaces. It weighs 5,900 pounds, more than 1,000.
So one of the things that has scared me away from EVs is, I love the performance that they can come up with out of these cars, but the things that scare me would be, number one, the range, number two, the charging infrastructure or lack thereof. But even more concerning than that for me is that a lot of these dealerships, they're not really set up to handle, like if they sell a bunch of these Charger EVs, they don't have the bays or the trained staff or technicians to work on more than one or two of these at a time and get them done in any kind of a reasonable time frame. And then the other thing for me is that I've seen a number of videos where people their charging is starting to, like their batteries are fading and it's not taking a full charge, or take a full charge and won't hold it, or won't take a charge at all, or whatever. And they go in and they're told that it's a wear and tear item, and that the cost to replace or fix the battery pack is literally what the car cost. And I mean, I could blow the motor in my Hyundai. The car costs $40,000. I might pay 10 grand for a motor if I had to, but that's far less than buying a $50,000 or $80,000 charger and having a $50,000 or $80,000 repair bill because all the batteries have to get replaced.
1,000 pounds heavier than a Tesla Model S Plaid. Suffice it to say, I pulled onto the road course at Radford Racing School with low expectations.
This car is massively heavy, 5,900 pounds. Of course, it's got plenty of power to compensate. 670 horsepower in the Scat Pack when I push that power shot button. And what I'll say about the weight is the steering is to be extremely immediate. There's no hesitation. You don't have to wait for the suspension or the bushings to load up. This thing goes. It definitely feels more athletic than the Challenger that it replaces. That's maybe not saying a whole lot. Of course, the Scat Pack has the track package, which is bigger brakes, adaptive dampers. This one has staggered summer tires on it, Goodyear.
Incidentally, I may have been calling this Challenger a Charger. I kind of use the terms interchangeably. I mean, they're basically the same car with, two-door versus four-door. And yeah, I understand there's some slight differences in the, the exterior aesthetics of the car. But at the end of the day, they're kind of the same car. So if I misspoke, I apologize. Just wanted to clear that up.
F1 Supercar 3s, and I would say it's got the right amount of grip. It's not a track hero. It doesn't have the amazing track rubber, but enough grip to have a ton of fun with this car. The balance on this is actually fantastic. I think all those stories we wrote over the years about Challengers and Chargers being kind of reluctant to turn in and not a ton of fun on a road course, it may be time to stop writing those stories.
Of course, a racetrack isn't a muscle car's natural habitat, which is probably why Dodge included a drift in donut mode, which sends stability control on a lunge brake and delivers more torque to the rear wheels. Like pretty much every all-wheel drive car, it takes some finesse to sustain a drift in the Daytona. And weirdly, sometimes the inside front tire starts furiously spinning in the middle of the bend. But getting the rear end to break loose isn't all that hard, and it makes for a hilarious and fun consolation prize for that whole not doing a burnout thing. At this point, we have to talk about the most controversial aspect of the Dodge Charger Daytona: the way it sounds. The temptation to pull a Milli Vanilli using the Hellcat's vocals must have been strong, but the NVH team resisted and instead took a field trip to the old Viper assembly plant where the company crown jewels are now kept. There, they sampled the exhaust note of every vehicle in the historical collection. That's why you'll hear the wind-up of a Chrysler turbine car layered into the ignition sequence. And the car idles, quote-unquote, with the same 38 Hz primary frequency of the original Hemi. Those sounds originate from speakers powered by a dedicated 600-watt amp that are mounted to a 1.5 cubic foot enclosure mounted behind the rear fascia to give it the resonance and volume we've been conditioned to expect from a Dodge muscle car. What's most strange about the Daytona is that it seems to have at least 3 different vocal personalities. The futuristic startup and shutdown sequences remind me of a Dolby sound test. The engine rev comes across as a lo-fi sound effect from an 80s arcade game, and the deep thrum when driving it is closest to a combustion engine. Maybe the best thing about it is that if you hate it, you can completely shut it off.
So we've established...
Okay, so I don't know. What do you guys think? That's one of those things I would probably, I mean, I'm sure I would play with it a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'd probably just turn it off and leave it off. What about you guys?
That the Charger Daytona is unique among EVs, but how is it as an electric vehicle? What's the range and the charging like? Well, the Scat Pack version gets 241 miles on the EPA cycle. Not bad, but if you're willing to sacrifice some speed and performance, take some lower grip tires, you can get up to 308 miles in the RT. The Daytona is an awesome highway cruiser with a buttery smooth ride and tomb-like silence in the cabin. Tesla could learn a thing or two from Dodge about sealing frameless windows.
So I would just point out that the interior in this car is similar to what's in my Elantra N. It has these suede inserts, and the bolstering on the sides is suede, with the outside being leather, just kind of what you see here. Although one cool thing about the Elantra is that at the base of the headrest, there's a lighted insignia that says N for Nuremberg, and there's actually lighting all the way around the base of the seat, including that N, which is inlaid into the seat, so it's not like bumping up against your head. Like, you don't feel it if you put your head back into the headrest.
On road trips though, the RT's long legs will be cramped by its mediocre charging. Dodge claims, very specifically, that both models peak at 183 kilowatts of charging power, and that the 100.5 kilowatt-hour battery can be charged from 5 to 80% in 32.5 minutes. So much of the charger data.
So I don't know about you guys, but if I have an EV and I'm stopping at the gas station to go in and use the restroom and maybe get a drink, stretch my legs, I do not want to be sitting out in the parking lot or standing around there for 38 minutes, which of course, they say 38 minutes, so you could probably add 10 minutes to that, called 48 minutes. So basically standing around for something close to an hour waiting for this thing to charge up and get going. That to me is just a big deal breaker.
Daytona's appeal is the way it looks, because it looks like no other EV. This vehicle is inspired by the 1968 Charger, with the linear horizontal elements and the very vertical front fascia, and the separation between the front of the car, the side of the car, and the rear of the car. It's a huge vehicle. If it were any wider, they'd have to put those amber off-road markers on it that you see on Raptors and ZR2s. The wheelbase has stretched 5 inches relative to the old Challenger, which makes for a huge back seat. And to rein in all that mass, this has the largest tire and brake packages of any Dodge muscle car. From the inside, the Daytona is the Chevy Suburban of two-door cars, feeling positively cavernous. A pair of digital screens take control of most functions, along with a strip of capacitive climate controls that provide haptic feedback with a loud, cheap click. An optional fixed glass roof and ambient lighting splash light across the cabin. And the rear seats are probably the most accommodating we've ever experienced in a two-door, at least any built in the past 40 years. There's room for a 6'3" passenger in back, with legroom to spare. The hatchback opens to reveal a massive 22.8 cubic feet of cargo space, while the 1.5 cubic.
Okay, so I stand corrected. I don't know if you guys caught that, but he just showed it with the hatchback open. It was very, very briefly. The picture I was referring to that I couldn't find again was on Dodge's website. So yeah, they put it on there, but they don't make it easy to find. But he just showed it to us briefly.
Cubic foot front can swallow a backpack or a small duffel bag. So where does it all net out? The Charger Daytona is a powerful yet comfortable road runner that's equally at home rocketing down a laser-straight desert highway or chasing apexes up a canyon road. But Dodge's efforts to bring its unique brand of muscle car energy to the EV world is a mixed success. Strip away the sound and the donut.
Okay, so anyway, there's that. So I don't know, what did you guys think about that? Is that you guys like that? Don't like it? I mean, all in all, at the end of the day, I like the car. So this is from again, this is Dodge's website, but there's just another look at that what they call the R wing, which to me, you know, you would think that'd be the F wing. And then he was talking about that exhaust, well, sound system, which is really what it is. And then here's just a from Brave. It features a rear liftback design rather than a traditional trunk, which I don't know how I feel about that. But at any rate, you know, at the end of the day, it's a super nice car. 50,000 for the base model, 80,000 for a fully spec'd out model, stage 2 with all the bells and whistles, 80,000 all day long, and that's awesome. That's great. For me, I don't think I'd buy one right here, right now, but nonetheless, it's a super nice car. What do you guys think? Appreciate you. Thanks for joining in. See you in the next video.